What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you, and one that I've been, again, eagerly anticipating, and it's cool that I'm anticipating albums that are getting dropped so early this year.
Right.
So we are going to go over the latest offering from Lord Dying, Clandestine Transcendence. Sorry, I had to.
I'll never look at that word the same ever again, even though I know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And you know how to pronounce it.
100%.
It'll never ever look...
It's Clandestine.
Clandestine Bears. One day I'm just going to write that book.
Yeah.
The very simplistic book, find an artist, and we will release the Clandestine Bears, and they will all be dressed in Shredlord's t-shirts.
And for those who don't get that joke, it's from a different video anyway. Clandestine Transcendence. This comes out also on the 19th of January on MNRK Heavy. This band formed in Portland, Oregon in 2010. This is their fourth album overall. I've been a fan of them since their debut, Summon the Faithless. I was a big fan of their follow-up, Poison Altars. And when it came down to their third album, Mysterium Tremendum, they had a big shift in their sound. Like, things got a little bit more proggy, and they started introducing more clean vocals. The song structures were different. Like, it was still very heavy, but they were definitely trying to pioneer new ground. And this is definitely a big continuation of that. Like, it's still kind of rooted in sludge metal, stoner metal, doom metal, kind of in that ilk, but there's a lot more going on. And this is also the first album with their new lineup, which includes Alyssa Moser, or Moser Pike. She's Matt Pike's wife, and she does bass and vocals occasionally on here. She's been a member since 2019, but when they were getting ready to record, obviously 2020 happened, and yeah, we remember that time. And this is also their first one with Kevin Schwartz on drums now. And I think, during the whole pandemic time, they probably had time to really fine-tune this and really push boundaries, because I thought I knew maybe what I was getting into with this one, since I've been a fan for a while, but I didn't. Like, this album is really different for these guys.
Yeah, I also kind of thought I knew what I was getting into, as I've been a fan for a while as well, and this is a stark contrast to where they came from, where they started. And I will agree, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the pandemic, my hope was always that bands would find themselves and practice a bunch and fine-tune their instruments, because you can't tour, you can't fucking go anywhere. So, yeah. And Lord Dying practiced. Yeah.
This is possibly the most dynamic release I think they've put out yet, and I know Mysterium Tremendum was, a really big album, very ambitious. I think this doubles down on the ambition, and they've made quite an album that is honestly kind of hard to describe, because it goes down so many different avenues. The opening track, The Universe is Weeping, comes in with somber, bluesy, clean guitars. There's some slide guitar in there. It's kind of rustic sounding, and the more I listened to it, the more I thought, man, this band's from Portland, but I swear they sound like they're kind of from like that Georgia sludge scene, because lots of Mastodon, lots of Baroness, a little bit of Kylesa in there too. And it's weird with the whole Mastodon and Baroness comparison, because honestly, I hear almost every phase of both of those bands' careers on this entire album. But it kind of sets it up with like some big heavy riffs after it builds up. And then you get this very somber, clean outro with just isolated vocals. And it's like, all right, that kind of sounds very Baroness too. And then you get into I Am Nothing, I Am Everything, and the mood shifts drastically.
Now, first off, we should point out Kurt Ballou mixed this record, so you kind of already know what you're getting into as far as sound is concerned. Like, everything is huge, just overwhelmingly gigantic. The big tribal drum intro on I Am Nothing, I Am Everything, everything just pounds.
Yeah. Like the most aggressive High on Fire song. It just comes in like war drums, and you get these very heavy, just chuggy riffs, harsher vocals, which you get a lot of harsh vocals, but also a lot of clean vocals on here, which honestly, this is probably the most I think I've heard this band sing. They did do a lot of that on Mysterium Tremendum, but this one kind of comes off a little bit more confident. But I Am Nothing, I Am Everything is one of the heaviest songs I think I've heard this band do. Like, it borders on death metal at spots. There are blast beats, there are tremolo riffs, and there's that sort of death metal intensity and energy to it. And that isn't the only stark shift on here. In fact, like, I thought I kind of had this band sound figured out, and then with every next track, I was like, nope, maybe not. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, just from track to track, you hear a multitude of different styles and different bands. Like, Onto Becoming explodes with what I would call an Enslaved style jam.
Yeah, honestly, well, it was weird because when I saw Unto in the title, I thought of Unto Others, which is like heavy metal, goth rock kind of combined, and it has that energy. And this is where the clean vocals really are showcased. Like the first time you really hear, a lot of them, and they're awesome. And they have this kind of low baritone, kind of groaned. Like, there's a lot of stuff on here that reminds me of, like, I would say Mark Lanigan from Screaming Trees, Queens of the Stone Age, tons of different projects, and maybe like a little bit of Nick Cave and David Bowie.
Yeah.
All kind of like whirled together, because it always has this very like somber overtone. Even when you're getting to a more bright section, the vocals are generally just, very weighty, very low, and just kind of, bummed out.
Almost like droning vocals.
Yeah. But the Enslaved comparison on that song really kind of shows up when it shifts over to harsh vocals.
Yeah.
The vocal dynamics across the board on this album, I think, are fantastic because they do well at every facet. The clean vocals are exceptional, but the harsh vocals are very just raspy and dry. And there's a lot of sections where they kind of take a different approach to the harsh vocals. Sometimes they are a more like just harsh roar. Sometimes they're more of like a kind of blackened kind of
yell.
Yeah. And sometimes they're kind of just like a creepy whisper in the background. And I don't know, it definitely helps with the atmosphere in here, which the atmosphere, man, I can only describe it as like violent mood swings and manic fits because, man, it shifts around a lot.
Yeah, it's like when you stop taking your medication and just try to wing it in life. And that's kind of what this is, because it goes from harsh to somber to harsh to somber to jammy to harsh to, like, it's just a roller coaster.
Yeah, really, like with the way this is paced, like there are no songs that are back to back that really sound similar. And I really like that. I mean, you have some songs that definitely have like a similar vibe, like Facing the Incomprehensible and I Am Nothing, I Am Everything definitely have like their heavier moments. And then towards the end of songs like Breaking the Clouds, In the Darkness of Our Minds, that's in the parentheses there, and Soul Metamorphosis, you get a little bit more of that death metal heaviness at the end. But you have a lot of like spacious, open, melodic sections too. And the thing that really caught me off guard, there's a lot of prog on here. Like, kind of classic prog. Like, I heard elements of Yes and Kansas and Rush. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, Pink Floyd. I wasn't expecting to hear that either. Like, it's all over the map.
Yeah, Breaking the Clouds, again, In the Darkness of Our Minds. I could make some comparisons to Animals there. Like, the raspy, kind of low, clean vocals on there. Little Roger Waters-ish.
It really is.
And the other thing that I really liked about that is you have this alternating clean vocal to whispered vocal. It's like, what you're actually saying versus the voice in your head or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
It's very unsettling, but man, does it excel at the melodic aspects. But when you get down to songs like Dancing on the Emptiness, which is the longest track on the album at like over 8 minutes, my God, this is one of the most dynamic songs I think they've ever written.
Yeah, dude, the funky groove that it starts out with, the bass becomes real prominent. It's like the first time you can really hear what the bassist is doing. The groove itself, though, for a majority of that song is trance-inducing.
Yeah, and I love how that bass line just sort of snakes through the entire song. Got a lot of big, heavy metal harmonies, like stuff you would hear Baroness use, but, I mean, going even further back, like classic heavy metal, Iron Maiden and Angel Witch and stuff like that. There are so many dynamics to that song. Like, it shifts around in styles. Like, you get heavier, sludgy sections. There's even a section towards the end that kind of sounds like Tool a bit, so you kind of get a little bit of, like, heavy alternative / prog, too. But the song structure is just wild. Like, it still has this really good flow to it, but it takes a lot of these interesting turns and sort of just, I don't know, kind of wanders around. Like, honestly, this whole album, it's kind of like a lost in the wilderness sort of vibe when you listen to it. Like, I don't know, like you're kind of just immersed in whatever surrounds you, and choose a path. Who knows where it's going to go?
And the way they do these shifts, too, is always really cool because they use the coolest of transitions. On Dancing on the Emptiness and A Bond Broken by Death, both those songs have some of the neatest, most wild transitions I think I've ever heard.
It's this really cool, like, arpeggio,
Yeah.
but it's extended out, but it goes right in to, like, you know, the main verse or the chorus at that point, just kind of seamlessly. Like, it seems very natural. And with a song title like A Bond Broken by Death, I was expecting something that was just gonna just hit me over the head, but the way that opens, again, very classic prog, and this little middle section of the album with a brief return to physical form, A Bond Broken by Death, and Break in the Clouds, In the Darkness of Our Minds. These song titles are long.
Yes, they are.
But this album is long. But this whole run really does a good job featuring acoustic guitar. There's a lot of cool acoustic melodies, and it's not just like to set up stuff. They're actually all the way through, and then you get a lot of cool, like, lush electric guitars on top of that. And that's just sort of a testament to the layering on here.
Yeah, the layering on here is insane. There's so much going on, but it's like everything is pinpoint perfection in the way it's all executed. It's like they totally meant for everything to sound like this, and it just... huge sound on everything.
Yeah, and the way the album flows, it really feels like a story. Like there's a narrative to it. Like there's a lot of the heavier stuff kind of up front. It's definitely more biting and aggressive. And then towards the end, you kind of get like a more somber vibe with songs like Swimming in the Absence and The Endless Road Home. Both of those songs are just straight Bummersville. Like, you get droning, strummed guitars. They're very atmospheric. Swing in the Absence almost sounds like Nick Cave fronting Cult of Luna at a point. Like, there's kind of a post-metal sort of dynamic to it. It's more about the lush atmosphere.
And I thought it sounded more like Russian Circles being fronted by David Bowie, so...
I'd go see either one.
Yeah.
And despite the really fun kind of like stuttered groove on The Endless Road Home, it's another very melancholic track that is just very... I don't know, kind of road weary, like, you know, that's where you find your way back to the campsite after being lost in the wilderness and thankfully not mauled by a bear.
Or when you've been on a very long road trip and you're finally like 30 miles from home and you're like, I don't care anymore.
I can't wait to stand up and all the blood to move back into my butt cheeks.
Yep.
And when it comes down to the musicianship on here, I think... honestly, this is one of their most impressive albums. They were always good at writing riffs. There's a lot of comparisons you can make to like Crowbar and definitely like early Mastodon with their earlier work. But here, of course, you still get the giant crushing riffs, but there's so much more going on. And I love the variety on here because, again, I was kind of getting surprised around like every turn on here.
Yep. I found it to be absolutely captivating, which I didn't expect to say about this record, to be honest. There's such a good balance between heavy and somber and so many jammy moments like Soul Metamorphosis, like a whole bulk of that song is just an awesome jam. Or Nick talked about the stuttered kick groove pattern in The Endless Road Home. Like, there's just so many twists and turns, but it's all mapped out so well, and it just keeps you wondering what's going to happen. But around every twist and turn is something awesome.
And again, like with the way that this album is paced, you don't get songs that sound similar running into one another. Like, it keeps this with a good like peaks and valleys sort of vibe to it, almost to the point where you could say that they are kind of lightly genre hopping, or at least like sub-genre hopping within metal. I think that just really kept this super engaging because I was getting absolutely lost in this album in terms of what it was doing. In terms of any negatives, I will say it is a bit long. This is about a minute and a half short of being an hour long, and that's a hell of a listen. And I think towards the end with the more dreary songs, like you can kind of feel that length, kind of like, okay, you know, this is getting a little bit long, especially on, you know, Swimming in the Absence, which is just an absolute bummer of a song. Pretty much that song is the musical equivalent of a day that just won't stop raining. Like, it's been doing it all day. It seems like it rains harder the second you think about going outside. Like, no, just stop it.
Can I get out of my car to go to the store? No!
You know, I like good somber music, but again, a little long.
I think that's why it may seem like it drags, because once you get towards the last couple songs, Swimming in the Absence and The Endless Road Home, these songs are notably different as far as their intensity is concerned. So, like, it's almost like you're losing the adrenaline rush that you had from the beginning of the record, which propelled you to be able to, not find it to be as lengthy as it is. But you get to the end, you're just like,
yeah.
Okay.
It is an endless road home. And the instrumental that breaks up a brief return to physical form, like when you get past that instrumental, I feel like a lot of the intensity in terms of like the really heavy sections kind of get, pushed to the back. Like, there's still awesome songs and just great songwriting all over, but I was kind of missing that sort of like just feral, vicious energy that showed up earlier on.
Except the big heavy ending on the end of Soul Metamorphosis.
But overall, man, this is an absolutely awesome album. I'm going to be listening to this one a lot, and I feel like this needs a lot of listens to fully get, but I am currently at a 4.5. Like, these songs are so well written. This album flows beautifully. It captures them at some of their heaviest moments, and at the same time, some of their most vulnerable and introspective moments. Like, this album is just huge sounding. And that isn't just due to the Kurt Ballou production, which is absolutely amazing once again, because in my opinion, that's kind of all he does. But I think there's just a lot that went into this. There's so many details, so many like finite little melodies are just kind of popping out of nowhere. The transitions are awesome, and the fact that there's so much variety on this album. Like, I can't just call this a sludge metal band anymore. Like, I could call it a prog band, but I still feel like there's some other avenues that prog doesn't necessarily cover in that umbrella. This is just amazing heavy music. We'll just call it that. If you're a big fan of pretty much every point in Mastodon's career, and pretty much every point in Baroness's career, as well as like Kylesa, still a bit of Crowbar, Enslaved, some goth rock stuff too, like that's also there. Check this out. This album's absolutely awesome.
I 100% agree. It's a 4.5 for me as well. By the time I got done with this record, I was legitimately like blown away. Holy crap, that was awesome. Just unending dynamic. Every song has these massive shifts in them that keeps your attention. I mentioned captivating earlier. Like, it's beauty. Like, the way that they've constructed these songs to be on a roller coaster every time, it got me. Not to mention the presentation of it all and Kurt Ballou's mix. I've come to believe that Kurt Ballou can do no wrong as far as mixing an album and as far as making a band sound the biggest and most intense that they possibly can. But yeah, the song structures here are incredible. I would be curious to see the dry erase board in the practice space for when they wrote all this. It would look like a giant trig problem. That's my guess. We didn't even discuss like all the bluesy leads, like the most tasteful, beautiful leads on all these songs. Yeah, I just found myself wanting more even after an hour. It was pretty damn awesome. Yeah, if you're a fan of Mastodon or Baroness or Queens of the Stone Age or Leprous or David Bowie or Pink Floyd or a myriad of other bands, you're probably going to really dig this. And even if you've heard these guys before and you kind of see the direction they're moving in, this is notably different. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least check this out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon is there. It is also on our channel. But if you are looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have t-shirts, both old and new ones. The old ones are discounted if we have them in your size. We also have hats now, so if you're looking for any Thralls Metal stuff, that is exactly where to find it.
Tons more reviews coming your way, tons more segments coming. Nick's got the States of Metal, What's John Jamming is coming back. We've got discography rankings, Black Dahlia Murder is coming, Meshuggah's after that. All in all, though, we couldn't do this without you guys. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the support. You guys mean the absolute world to us. We've been involved with Thralls of Metal for so long, it's become a gigantic part of all of our lives. I can't imagine not doing this at this point.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, over 5 years.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely awesome, and yeah, this channel exceeded all of my expectations a long time ago. But thank you for getting us to where we are, and we got a ton of stuff planned for you. So one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure you've been good today. I don't know, maybe.
I don't know.
But either way, we will catch you later.